So let's go ahead and get started and talk about the first behavior that we have to master to make our teams great. And that behavior is trust. Now that sounds obvious, doesn't it? You're thinking, no duh. Is this really anything new? Well, the thing about trust that's important is most of us think about trust as what I call predictive trust. That we have to be able to predict one another's behaviors. Well, any group of people, any two people that have known each other for a long period of time will have predictive trust with one another. They'll be able to predict one another's behaviors. If I say something, you know that this is what I'm probably going to do. Or if you tell me that you're going to do something, I know what's actually going to happen. I can predict your behavior. That's not really trust when it comes to a team. The kind of trust that I'm talking about on a team is what I call vulnerability-based trust. Vulnerability-based trust is the kind of trust that comes about when human beings on a team can and will say things to one another like, I don't know the answer, I need help, I think I made a mistake, or even I'm sorry, I think I did something that was wrong. They can be completely vulnerable about who they are, mistakes and warts and all. It creates a dynamic on a team that is just invaluable. And we all know how powerful this can be if we think about teams we've been on that didn't have vulnerability-based trust. And we've all experienced that in our careers. Once I worked with a team that was struggling, and they asked me to do a two-day offsite for the team. But before I did that, they said, come observe our staff meeting so you can see kind of how we interact with one another. And so I went to their staff meeting. I noticed something very interesting, kind of funky, if you will. There was this one person on the team that whenever she spoke at the meeting, every time she said anything, the room would go silent. There'd be this awkward pause until someone changed the subject and they moved on to something else. Every time she spoke. So they'd be talking about competitive analysis and what they needed to do to fight off a threat from her competitor. And she would say, well, this is what I think we should do. And people would go silent. And somebody would change the subject. They'd be talking about something else, strategy or something. And she'd say, well, this is what we did at my last company and this is what I think we should do. Silence. It was the weirdest thing. So after the meeting, I went to one of the people on the team and I said, what is going on? Why does nobody ever say anything after she talks? And they said, because we've learned that whenever we disagree with her or have a different idea than hers, she always defends herself. She never acknowledges that we might be right. And we finally decided, why bother? So we thought that was interesting. So a little while later, we did our two-day offsite with this team. And we went off and during the first day of the two-day offsite, we talked about trust and vulnerability and the need to open up and be open with your teammates. And we also talked about strategy and tactics and everything else the team was doing. And that night, we went to dinner. Before the second day, we went to dinner at an Italian restaurant where we had wine with dinner, which is the great elixir of truth on many teams, as you know. And this woman, after having a few too many glasses of wine, stood up at the end of dinner, raised her glass and said, kind of like a toast, said, hey, you guys, we've been talking about trust today, and I just want you to know I've been married for 10 years now, and I've just barely learned to trust my husband this year, so I'm not going to be trusting you guys anytime soon, if ever. Cheers. And we were like, cheers, all right, you know. And we thought, okay. I went outside with the team leader and we said, okay, this is the problem. This poor woman has some deep trust issue that probably dates back to her childhood. So we just had to work and try to get her to open up. Well, eventually this woman left the organization. And do you know that the very next meeting they had there, without her, it was like a completely different team. You would have thought they had swapped out every member of the team for a new one because it was completely different, the dynamic. And the moral of this story is this: if just one member of a team cannot be vulnerable, it spreads like a disease to the whole team. Just one member. So we have to ask ourselves, and everybody's going to come to vulnerability different ways. Depending on your disc type, it's going to look different. But you got to know that everyone is committed to getting there, and that will make the difference on your team in building trust.